of okay. The mission of the Berkeley Research Administrator Group, BRAG, is to provide a forum for collegiate interaction in the research administration community. We do this by facilitating presentations by subject matter experts, creating an environment to foster peer-to-peer changes, and seeking and sharing best practices. There will be time for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. Please add your questions to the chat as they come up, and we will get to them at the end. If you would like your questions to be anonymous, please send it via private message to Brenda or me. I will now turn it over to Brenda to introduce today's speaker.
Hi, everyone. Herve, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Herve has worked on campus for 9 years and has held the position of DFL for the Division of Administration and Finance, and then took on the role of recharge lead for the campus. For the last 4 years, he has also worked with UCOP to develop composite benefit rates, or CBR to most of us, for the campus. He has been involved in the campus's multi-year planning process and the financial sustainability initiative across campus, and is a member of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on Sustainability. He works in the Central Finance Planning and Analysis team, and he is going to give us a great presentation on recharge today. So thanks again, Herve, and it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brenda. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this discussion around recharge. I might be coughing from time to time. I've been sick for last week, so my apologies in advance if that's the case. And so, without further ado, let me share material we'll be reviewing today. So, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So today we'll be discussing recharge, and on the agenda we have a few items. We're going to start with looking at the broader perspective of recharge and framing recharge activity within the campus. We're going to be defining what a recharge center is. We're going to look at functional responsibilities, determine how to develop a recharge rate, discuss billing for recharges, identify how to address surpluses and deficits. We'll also be discussing how to monitor recharges, how to submit self-certification. We'll briefly discuss audits as well. Have one slide on sustainability and how recharge can help with achieving some of our goals. We'll skip the closed shutdown of recharge operation for today, and we'll be addressing some of the common issues, as well as reviewing references, contact information, and the recharge form towards the end. So, so feel free to ask questions during the presentation. I'm happy to also answer them at the end, but this is really a discussion here. So okay, so moving on, we can see on this particular slide, if we elevate ourselves a little bit and look at UC Berkeley in general and some of the groups we interact with. Within UC Berkeley, there is different type of units. We have administrative units who provide support to both academic and research units. We have academic units, different type of research unit as well. And so the arrows are really pointing towards activities and services that are offered. So for example, IT might be providing some storage capabilities for some of the data that researchers are using. So that would be one example of a recharge. The arrows that are depicted in red represent recharges that are taking place within the same units. So for example, IT might be, one particular group within IT might be recharging another group within IT that, needs the service provided by the first units. So this is what the red arrows represents. And then if we step out of the UC Berkeley initial box here, we can see that, we interface with quite a few other entities as well. So on the right, we have the affiliates and some of the other UCs with which we partner on research and other activities. So Recharge Center at time are charging for services towards those clients. But we also interface on the left side in the green box. We also interface with purely external clients. So those might be corporations, there might be other universities. And so I'm depicting those different categories because from a recharge policy perspective, the pricing for the services to those different entities are different. And then, of course, we are, research university, and there's lots of recharge activities and services that are delivered towards a sponsored project, contract and contracting grants. Any questions so far? Okay, if someone could, if there's question in the chat that we want to address, immediately, if someone could just, stop me and mention that, I would appreciate it. So moving on to the next slide here. So in terms of recharge activities, we have two different type of cost, right? And so a sponsored project policy requires that expense be broken down between direct expense, as we know, and indirect expenses. So on the indirect expense side, we also refer to this as, overhead or F&A rates. I think it was a presentation by one of my colleagues regarding this particular topic at one of the previous forum. And so as we know, direct expenses are directly charged to contracting grants, and recharge rates are actually established based on direct expense and provide a mechanism to allocate cost to CNG, enabling the university to be reimbursed for its activity. So recharge are beneficial when a set of activities or cost can be bundled up and charged via a particular price or recharge rate to contracting grants. So this is most of the circumstances that recharge are used on campus. So shifting to the next area, let's look at the recharge center and how do we define them. So to determine, oftentimes people are asking me, how do I know if a particular service that our department offers is a recharge service or not? So there is some, some guidelines in terms of how to identify if a service is a recharge or not. So here, the definition is that the unit is providing specific goods or services. So the goods or services need to be specific. They need to be delivered to a number of campus departments. And they also need to be ongoing in terms of time frame. So if a unit is providing a service to a particular group for a year or two, that wouldn't really qualify as a service center and a recharge center. So the idea is once you're a recharge center, the unit is allowed to recover its costs in providing these goods or services through a charge to its user, and this is why pricing is developed for these type of services. So I'm not going to read, go through each of the bullets on each of the slide. I'm just going to pick, some of them. And so we talked about services that can be provided to non-campus, non-affiliate entities. And those services are really restricted to services that are unique and support the campus academic mission. The idea is that the services that we provide to external clients should not compete with other commercial sources. So shifting to some of the rules and criteria related to the self-certification components. So there's two dimensions, so to speak. The first one is a unit a recharge unit or not? And we just went through how to identify if a service center is a recharge unit or not. And then the second question, the second layer is if a recharge unit or if a unit is a service center or recharge center, do they need to self-certify? So the self-certification is a yearly process where the recharge units go through the calculation of all their expenses, the different services, and establish rates that are then approved by the recharge committee and published on the recharge website. So we can see in the little box towards the end here of the slide that there's only one case when a service center or recharge center does not need to self-certify, and this is the case when the dollar of recharge incomes that is anticipated is below $500,000, and the service center is not planning on charging contract and grants. In all the other cases, the self-certification should be submitted. I'm going to pose any questions. Okay, I take this as a no. So a few rules regarding recharges. The first one is that all campus users are charged the same rate for the same service performed or good provided. So there's one rate that everyone is charged. The recharge center must only charge their published authorized rates. So the authorized rates and the published rates are the rates that are on the recharge website. So these are the official rates. I maintain them, during the year if there is specific submissions regarding changes in recharge rates. So the idea is that recharge units, since the basis for their prices is based on costs, the idea is that they operate at close to break-even level over time, right? So of course there is always variances between calculated price and actual expense and actual volume, which drive either surplus or deficit that are then rolled into future year rate calculations. So the idea is that recharge units break even over time. A few examples here of recharge units. A few are listed here on the research side. So we have the molecular cell biology, the genomic sequencing lab, the nano lab with chemical waste disposal. That's also a service provided here, the electron microscope facility. And then shifting to the admin side, we have mail services, IT and facility. And then on the research, we also have animal care there. So one of our goal, as you might know, as a university, is to deploy finance reform. I think the new name is Finance Sustainability Initiative, FSI. And so in this initiative, one of the components is related to simplification of some of the recharge activities, and the low-hanging fruits are really on the admin side. On the research side, we're always going to need some recharge mechanism to charge contract and grants. But on the IT and facility side, particularly, there might be some opportunity to consolidate some of the recharge rate and maybe capture them through, central assessment or another, type of assessment. So this is what this little asterisk meant at the bottom. In terms of functional responsibilities, there's a few of them at the department level. The departments are really here to monitor the overall operation of the recharge center, ensure compliance with the recharge policy, which we update once a year and is posted on the website. They review services on an ongoing basis, submit budgets, and also submit the annual self-certification as part of the yearly budget process. So that's on the department side. At the division level, many of the divisions are reviewing the department's submission, validating the data, signing off on the self-certification, and then submitting them to me. And we then share them with the recharge committee and get approval on those prior to posting them on the website in early June, prior to the start of the fiscal year. So that's at the world division level. The recharge committee has 4 or 5 members and provides some guidance and oversight in terms of various activities related to recharge center. I also provide a summary of the rates for the committee for each service center that is approved in the spring. And then once all the rates are approved, again, they're posted on the website. The committee also review changes to the policy, which we update on a yearly basis. So the role of the Office of the Vice Chancellor of Finance, so this is really my role. So I see myself as, a person providing guidance and support to the recharge center. The recharge policy can be quite complex. At times there's, gray areas. So I'm really here to support all the recharge center in their operation. Helping them when they identify either, strengths or weaknesses, opportunity or threats. We're really here to collaborate and see how we can operate in an excellent manner. So shifting topics a little bit, we're going to be reviewing recharge rate and how to develop them. So it really all starts at the business level. So identifying the line of business, identifying the different costs associated with different line of business is a key component, because rates are really grounded into expenses associated with the services provided. And so having a good understanding about the process and the service, what is required, is really helpful to build solid rates. And then oftentimes, once the rates have been identified, once the costs have been identified, we can then allocate them towards the different services that are offered by the service center. And then one of the final steps before developing the rate is to estimate the revenue and the volume. So once we have costs, and once we have a volume, we can then develop a rate, which is one of the last steps, and finally get the rates self-certified. Any questions?
No questions in chat so far.
Okay. Thank you. So the formula is actually pretty straightforward. Once we've identified the estimated cost, providing the good and the service, right? We take this amount, divide by the estimated number of service unit to be provided, that's the volume, and that then establishes a rate, right? So so we have around 800 rates on campus right now. And I just did a comparison with some of the other UCs, and we're actually pretty streamlined in terms of recharge operation. Some of the other UCs have a significant higher number of recharge centers, and one of their aim and target is to simplify recharge. That was an interesting analysis that we just recently did. So in terms of rate development, looking at the cost pool, we need to ensure that the costs we include are allowable. They need to be reasonable. We also need to treat them consistently. And what we mean here is, if certain costs, historically have been treated as direct costs, we don't want to shift them into, indirect costs in the future, right? We want to maintain and have a consistent approach, since indirect costs and overhead costs are charged to contract and grants using a different mechanism, and we want to ensure that we're consistent in the treatment of cost.
Hey, Herve, we did have a question come in.
Yep.
How, because a lot of recharges get charged to grant funds. And so how does an RA, a research administrator, go about updating or canceling charge strings for recharges that are being charged to grants? Because we have to get them updated before the end date so they don't get charged after the project ends.
Okay. So is the question, so let me mention how I interpret the question, right? And maybe I'm not interpreting correctly, but what I'm hearing is that there is a case, for example, right, where like a recharge center might have charged, or did charge a contract and grants, right? And maybe this charge should not have occurred, and the RA is trying to reverse this charge. Is this
No, not necessarily reverse. So let's say, a PI has a grant and there's some OLAC charges, some animal care, and the grant is ending. And so we need to either change that charge string for his new project or just cancel the services because the grant has ended. So how would an RA go about doing that?
Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood. Okay. So encourage clients, right, of recharge center to stay engaged, right, with the recharge centers, managers themselves, to let them know of any changes, right, in allocation of cost. So in this particular case, I anticipate that the PI or the RA would contact OLAC and say that a particular grant is ending, and that moving forward, if a similar service needs to be delivered, the RA would provide the new chart string, right, or an updated chart string, or simply clarifies that there is an end date for a particular grant, and let the service center know. Does this make sense?
That does make sense. And kind of a follow-up to that, I was wondering if, like, I know on the recharge website, there you can get the rates really easily for all of the recharge centers. Is there anywhere, maybe overlooking it on the website, but is there somewhere where it lists like who to contact for each recharge center?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so I believe that on the recharge website, there is two tabs. There is two tabs on the Excel spreadsheet. There is one tab listing all the rates, and it also lists who prepared the rates. So that's a good person to contact. And I believe there's like a summary on the first tab as well. But there is a few folks that are typically listed there if there is questions. But maybe what we can do for next year is maybe we can add contact that's more on the business side versus more on the on the recharge, on the setup of recharge rates, to help with the contact. But I assume that when when a client, right, or when a PI start engaging with the service center, they have a contact, right? Because they need to determine, okay, the scope of work and what will be used, etc. So I assume that this connection exists, and therefore at the end of the grant, the same person should be contacted. But we can add this. I will take a note and.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful because a lot of times the PIs like defer to their RAs to take care of that sort of thing, and we don't always have the best contact. So I think if we had like some sort of like financial contact to cancel or update charge strings, would be really helpful. I did see the other tab you were referring to, so I see what you're looking at now with the additional contact.
Yeah. And so what you're seeing is sufficient, or would you like to have maybe a name of a business contact, so to speak? Because I think the folks that are listed there are the financial analysts that prepares the rates, so they might be different from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I'd love to hear from the group. You guys can put in chat if business contact would be helpful.
Can I make a comment? Just a short comment on
Yes.
that might help Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Site. They would be if you don't have a financial contact on the rechargeability. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought my internet went down. You could, well, the first step I think would be to go online to the recharge facility website to see if you can have a point of contact there. That would be my first step in terms of like talking with someone. The other thing too is, and we've updated this thanks to you, Hannah, is the finance analyst, the VCRO finance analyst, what is it called? Assignment online. We're in the process of updating that. So you could always go to that website also and enter in the unit that you're looking for, and it will give you the finance analyst that's assigned. These are just for VCRO recharge facilities, by the way, which I think most of, these are just for the recharge facilities that fall under VCRO. You could find your financial contact through that link also.
All right, thank you, Brenda. That's very helpful for those that are run by the ORUs. I just put in chat for everyone the recharge website that Herve and I were discussing, and also the VCRO finance analyst page Brenda mentioned.
Great, thank you. And
Okay.
we'll integrate next year for the next cycle. We'll list some people to contact if charge string need to be changed, etc.
Oh, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And feel free to reach out to me, outside of this forum too, right? As the year unfolds and you have questions or suggestions, I'm always interested in learning more about how we can, help the overall, organization. So feel free to reach out to me.
Great, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. So coming back, I'm going to accelerate a little bit. So coming back to the different, the cost pool and some of the costs. Clearly with like salary, wages, and fringe benefits, supply and services, cost of lease, non-capital equipment or facility, equipment depreciation, repair and maintenance, and then there is surplus and deficits that can be included in the rates as well for future years, and is included, right? So those are some of the costs that are captured there. I'm not gonna read all the unallowable costs, sorry. The first two, UCRP supplemental interest is not allowed, and Gale, as you know, is not allowed on CNG either. So those are costs that are not allowable on recharge either. So recharge, big picture, recharge often follows policies that are related to contracting grants, right? Since recharge center charge contracting grants, so this is where you see similarity in terms of allowable and unallowable cost. So there is guidelines on equipment depreciation on the website. And so one of the way to address needs for fund for like pieces of equipment is to over time set up some reserve funds. And so when an equipment is purchased, the equipment can be depreciated and funds can be set up on the side in the reserve fund to be used when the equipment is at the end of its life and the new equipment need to be purchased. So there is some mechanisms that do exist there for equipment renewal. We have a few generic recharge funds. Some of the larger units have their own recharge funds, but there is a few generic ones that are used as well. In terms of subsidies, recharge center can include subsidies in the rate structure, but we want to have visibility into the subsidies. So it's a separate line in the self-certification. When costs are identified, we list subsidies, and it's helpful for us to be able to report on subsidy level over time. But the subsidy also helps us to identify pricing to external clients, because for external clients, the subsidy need to be carved out of the rate, and then the surcharge is applied as well. So having visibility into the subsidies is critical. So surcharge is the components of the revenue that is above the regular recharge rates. So when we charge external clients, let's say corporations, we use the unsubsidized rates to start with, and then we apply a surcharge. And so the surcharge is really here. Think of the surcharge almost as the equivalent of your FNA rate that you charge the government. It's basically to cover our overheads, right? So we want to make sure when we charge external clients that not only do we cover our direct costs, but also our overhead. And so the surcharge is the words that's used to describe the components above the internal unsubsidized rate. Any questions? And so there is a series of accounts for both like revenue and funds that are used for when we engage with external clients. I'm not going to go through them. Just wanted you to be aware of the fact that there is some difference there. And then this slide is really to help us capture the different pricing levels that exist depending on which external entity or internal entity, we interact with. So I'm just going to take 2 examples here. So on the top, in the darker blue, you can see the different client types. So we have services. The second column, we have services provided internally within UC Berkeley. Then we have the next section is on external private corporation. We have affiliates, excluding other UCs. Then we have other UCs, and then other university and nonprofits. So those are the different categories. And then we have different components. And this table, summarizes how to apply the different components to the different clients, so to speak. So to take the example with the column internal to UC Berkeley, can a recharge center have a subsidy? Yes, they can subsidize internal rates, right? Many units do. Can they charge a surcharge, which is, component above the unsubsidized? rate? The answer is no, right? So internally, you cannot have a surcharge. You can only charge you based on your direct cost, not surcharge internally. Is AFC included in the rate calculation or as a price? No, there is no AFC, right? Because it's internal, it's not treated as revenue, so there's no AFC. And you won't be charged AFC either, which is what is depicted in the last row, right? So the next example is external clients, let's say a private corporation. Can the rate be subsidized? No. So the starting point is to use the unsubsidized rate versus the subsidized rate. And then there is a surcharge that's added. And so you can see the policy here is such that you need to have a surcharge. And the minimum surcharge, that's not the maximum, but a minimum surcharge is the ICR rate, which is also known as the FNA rate, right? So ICR, overhead rate, FNA rates are all synonymous. And so again, here we want to ensure that we cover some of our overheads and charge external clients for the overhead components. And so AFC can be applied, on top of the surcharge, and will also be charged, right? Because if you engage with external clients, you're going to book it as revenue, and then AFC will be charged. So you can see for some of the other, client types, we have different combination. And so there is, this material is found on the Recharge website. Towards the bottom, there is a section on training material. So you will find the details of this PowerPoint in this particular section of the website. So in terms of billing, there are certain guidelines, right? And so the idea is that Recharge Center must bill their customer in a timely manner. There are certain rules from time to time. I hear clients voicing concern with some of the invoices that were, invoiced really late. So at the time I need to, have a discussion with both party, and typically it's resolved. But Recharge Center knows that it's very important to charge on a timely basis. What are some of the other key elements here? So in terms of your bullet just before last, the recharge customer is 60 days from the time a recharge is posted to the general ledger to dispute the charge. So there is both, expectation. There's expectation, sorry, on both sides, right? Both the service provider, but also the clients. And recharge units should use the University AR system, account receivable system, to record their receivable when they engage with external clients. So this helps us have visibility into our account receivable, and for tracking purposes as well. It's best practice. So something to keep in mind. Any questions?
May I ask a question, Herve?
Oh, sure, yeah.
The previous slide, there was UC rates, and I noticed it seemed like there was surcharge for UC campuses. Is that so?
So
it sounds like it will be applied locally at other UCs, any like IDC costs and everything else.
Yeah, so this table indicates that a surcharge can be applied to like other UC campus, but if a decision is made to apply any surcharge, the maximum is the ICR rate. So this is not saying that you need to have a surcharge when you charge other UCs, but you can. So what I noticed is that there seem to be some existing agreements, right, between different UCs. It's the same with with LBNL on the affiliate side. And so so there is like precedence, so to speak, in terms of what pricing has been used. And so again, the idea, if there been agreement made, for example, between two UCs that they would charge themselves at the internal rate, this is completely fine.
Okay, that's.
But yeah, it just provides, the reason why we changed the policy is like LBNL used to delay like payment on some of the invoices, arguing that our charges were outside of the policy. And so, we would be charging them 10%, markup to cover a 9% AFC, right? And they would argue and then say, oh, you can only charge us, the AFC is a 9%, you cannot charge us, 10% to cover your 9%. So we changed I changed the policy because they were using our policies as a rationale for not paying us. So I changed the policy and made it a little, more open, allowing for us to, recoup some of our costs. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it does.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. Okay, so in terms of surplus and deficits, recharge center, must break even over time, right? So there's mechanism to absorb, deficits. So there is a concept of tolerance, which is 1/12 of the yearly expense. The calculation is a little more complex, but in a nutshell, this is what it is. And so the idea is for recharge operation to function within this, this tolerance. So it can be either plus or minus, the tolerance. There is exception during COVID. We had, exceptions to the policy, and we would typically those are granted through the deficit waivers that are submitted at the end of the year. So in terms of self-monitoring, it's critical, especially for new operation, to really monitor their ledgers, their expense, etc. Make requests for changes, especially the first years are in operation. Once they're a little more stable and understand volume and expense, it's so easier to stay within tolerance, assuming there is no significant crisis. So there is tools that exist to monitor, but that's one of the expectation is to monitor the operation on a fairly ongoing basis. The self-certification is process we are going through early in the year. So we just send a self-certification in December. They're on the website, so you can see the templates, and they will be due in January, each year. In terms of process, the unit completes the self-certification, submits them to the divisions. There might be some back and forth until there is agreement. Then they are submitted to me by the deadline, which is towards the end of January. As then consolidate the rate, publish them for budgeting purposes, and then they also consolidated and reviewed by the recharge committee for approval, and eventually they're posted on the recharge website. So that's the process in a nutshell. And then throughout the year, units can also submit rate requests, but only typically when they think that they're gonna be operating outside of the tolerance. So by the end of the year, if they're going to be within tolerance by the end of the year, we typically reject their request for rate change. We have lots of rates, and we just want to minimize the number of rates submitted in year. Audits, every year we're audited as part of as contracting grants is audited. And so recharge are also audited, and so far we haven't had any findings in the last 5-6 years, which is great. So appreciate everyone's input, but there is audits every year. A few units are selected, and we are audited, so something to expect. In terms of sustainability, as you might know, we have two significant mandates here on campus. One is around zero waste, and the other one is around carbon neutrality, right? So the carbon neutrality goals is a goal we have set up for 2025. And so any operational changes that we can deploy to help us, get closer to our goal of carbon neutrality by 2025 will reduce the amount of money we're going to need to spend to offset any residual, carbon that we emit by 2025, right? And so, so Recharge Center, with their facility and different activity can participate in this, and I expect it to participate in this, broader UC and, world initiative. Just wanted to list a few common issues here to close with. Equipment reserve is often, topics that can be a little challenging. There's depreciation, guidelines and amortization that, exist and might not necessarily align with the life of the asset, which can create some challenges. Surcharge income is an area where, at time, units don't necessarily realize which pricing to use, right? Depending on the circumstances. So we have these tables there. What are some of the other components? Yeah, from time to time, we have, billing policies and procedures that are not respected in terms of timing, issuance of invoices, etc. But it's pretty rare these days. So, and then in terms of reference and then contact information on the, on the PowerPoint, you can find links to different websites, the contract and grant manual, the IFC policy, the sustainable office link as well. And always feel free to, reach out to me. I'm available and happy to see how I can help the recharge units and new units. So in terms of forms and templates, they are on the Recharge website. So you can encourage you to visit the website and get familiar with some of the information that were listed, and also identify opportunity for improvement there. So okay. So in a nutshell, this is the presentation around Recharge. So thank you very much. Do we have any question? I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but is there any questions?
We are good on time. We have about 10 minutes until we officially end. I've had no more questions in chat, but I will definitely open up to anyone if they want to unmute and ask a question directly. That would be great. And I just want to say thank you, Herve. This has been wonderful. If you could send the slides to Brenda or myself, we'll get those posted online for those who couldn't make it today.
Sure, we'll do, yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for Herve on recharges? Well, I will take that as a no. I feel like your presentation really covered everything.
Great. And if you have any questions, coming to your mind later on, feel free to, reach out to me. I really appreciate, the opportunity to present on Recharge today. So thank you to Brenda and others who have, helped me present today. Thank you for enabling this this type of collaborative learning. I really appreciate it.
Is that my cue, Hannah?
That is your cue, Sonia.
Okay. I was just wondering. Okay. Thank you for attending our BRAG meeting today. We are putting the link to a short chat, to we are putting the link to a short chat survey in the chat. Please take a moment, please take a minute to give us feedback on today's meeting. We will also send the survey out in an email. Our next Bragg General Meeting will be Tuesday, December 13th at 11 a.m. And we will hear from Professor Francisco Barilli on predictive control research for automating, driving, robotics, and food and energy systems. Look for the email and calendar invite soon. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you again, Herve. This was
Oh,
a
you're
great
welcome. Yeah, have a
presentation.
great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Herve.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.